first and foremost, thanks for agreeing to do the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we were just catching up. You're still up in the Boston area, quarantined like the rest of us. How? I've been enjoying watching your Instagram account and seeing that you're still getting the work in. How's it been trying to get workouts in during this time?
It's different. It poses a unique challenge, but I set up a door frame pull-ups bar, which is surprisingly strong. I'd recommend it to folks out there. Just very simple, old school, screws into the doorway. Actually, not screws. You just kind of twist it and it stays in the doorway.
Right.
It's weighted pull-ups. So that's good. And, I got a little fancier and set up an outdoor pull-ups bar. Fortunately, my parents live nearby, set it up in their driveway.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'm shocked to hear that you didn't have a pull-up bar in your house already. I feel like most people would expect the man who set so many pull-up world records would be like doing them upon waking and going to bed, but it's good that you finally got your hands on one there.
It is. I actually like to separate my workout from what I do at home to some extent. There's something about getting up, walking or driving to the gym and just getting into the mindset of the workout that under normal circumstances, I really benefit from. But of course, these days I've had to adjust.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Well, and that seems to be all the rage right now. Everyone is publishing what they're doing at home to work out. So if you're able to still get out of the house a little bit, even if it's just getting into an outdoor pull-up bar, you're faring far better than a lot of folks are. So where do you typically work out at?
I work out typically at a gym. So local Boston Sports Club in Allston, Massachusetts, also at some CrossFit gyms. A training partner of mine and a friend of mine who I work out with, who's actually another Guinness World Record setter, works out at a gym. Yeah, so we can get into that. But he works out up in Marblehead, so we work out at a CrossFit gym. Every week, every 2 weeks, head up there to Marblehead. Sometimes he comes down here. So that's basically my zone. But I love outdoor pull-ups bars. So during the spring, summer, and these days, actually now the parks are getting closed, but I think it's nice to get outdoors and be able to work out under the sun.
Yeah. I've been trying to make a point to just like find excuses to get outside. Not just even when it comes to working out, but just like at this point in my life, it's like I spend all day behind a computer, and it's like just any excuse to get outside and get a little natural light. Like I jump at the chance.
Absolutely. And I know you played football, so that's outdoors, and I grew up playing baseball. So, the smell of fresh cut grass in the spring, it's like you miss that if everything is indoors and everything's in the gym. And, these days when indoor spaces are kind of shut down, it is nice to get outside and to breathe the fresh air and kind of reconnect with nature as you're engaging in your athletic activity.
Absolutely. And it's funny. We had on, it hasn't gone live yet, but it's going to soon. A guy by the name of Nick Littlehales. He's a sleep performance coach, and he's worked with a lot of elite athletes in sports. What's the word I'm looking for? Professional teams in Europe and the States. And he is a big believer that just like the exposure to the amount of light that being outside provides is like one of the most critical things you can do just to kind of like properly set your circadian rhythm. So, after talking to him about that, it's just like, I got to get outside more. Even when I think I'm getting a lot of like, not natural, but light just by working indoors under like brightly lit conditions. He's like, no, it completely pales in comparison. He's like, you have to get outside to get the benefits of that.
Yeah. They say it's the cure for jet lag.
That's right. Yeah. I was reading about that, and there's, aren't there like those Jawbone headphones that actually, what am I trying to say here? It's like, rather than having to like receive the light visually, there's some way that you can actually like receive the light through like your jawbone. Have you heard about this?
I haven't.
It makes no sense. And as I say it out loud, I'm like, that doesn't sound like it checks out. I'm going to follow up on that. We'll link to that in the show notes. But I've heard that that's one of the cures for jet lag as well.
Huh.
Just get outside.
Yeah.
Get outside. So you brought it up. So yeah, I played football at Princeton, and then you played baseball at Harvard, correct? Around the same time.
Around the same time, yeah, I played for a couple of years. I was playing JV ball, so it wasn't, an all year round commitment, but I grew up on baseball. And until I was maybe 16 years old, I wanted to be a professional baseball player when I grew up, and played it super avidly throughout high school. And then in college, I kind of realized that probably wasn't going to happen. But at the same time, I also just developed different interests and branched out. But just have always loved sports and being physically active.
Yeah. And that's a good segue too. So for those who don't know you, right, like in the intro, they're now aware that you're a multiple pull-up world record holder, but I feel like that probably only represents a very small percentage of what you're actually about. Do you want to give people a little bit of background about what you're currently doing?
Yeah. So I trained to set Guinness World Records in pull-ups, of course, and I currently hold the record, most pull-ups in a minute, with 68 reps.
Yeah, which for people who haven't seen it, if you're listening to this, you have to go and watch it because it is absolutely incredible. One, that he's able to keep up the pace that he starts out with, but two, just how effectively you get in all those pull-ups in such a short amount of time.
Oh, well, thanks. It's tough work and it's a cool record to have, but what I love most about it is the opportunities that it opens up, the people that it allows me to meet, and the way of life that it represents. So that's kind of one side of myself. And then the other side is that I teach philosophy. So I have a PhD in philosophy. I've been teaching undergraduates at Harvard since 2013. And part of my way of life really is to connect these two disciplines, fitness and philosophy. And I see the two as intersecting in many ways that people might not immediately think of. So I'd be thrilled to talk more about that, but of course also about my training.
Yeah. Well, no, let's talk about that because, I think when most people think about philosophy, they think about the exercise of chair up on a table and the professor says like, hey, tell me why this chair exists. Right. So for the person who might not be well versed, that might feel like a big leap connecting fitness to philosophy. So I guess from your perspective, in what way do you feel like those two worlds start to collide?
So I think it's unfortunate that philosophy is often taught that way in a very abstract manner, exactly as you describe it.
Yeah.
But philosophy, as it was originally conceived, at least in the Western tradition in ancient Athens, was not at all abstract. In fact, it occupied the same position as a lot of self-help literature does today. Philosophy was about how to live well.
Interesting.
About how to attain happiness. So it was of immense personal significance. If you go back to Socrates, Plato, who wrote about Socrates, and Aristotle, their abiding focus was on how to live the good life. And what they presented was a conception of life according to which happiness isn't just about pleasure. And it's actually not even about accomplishment in meeting your goals, but about living in a way that's virtuous but virtuous in a way that's personally empowering, not just like be nice to other people, don't lie, cheat, steal, like all the basics. Like, yeah, sure, that, but more than that, coping with adversity, maintaining a sense of self-possession throughout the twists and turns of life.
Yeah.
And so they were very much attuned to this ideal of harmony of soul that would keep you in equilibrium throughout your entire life. And their whole project was articulating the qualities of character necessary to attaining that kind of harmony. So it was very personal and very relevant to everybody's life.
Yeah. And in the minimal exposure that I did have to philosophy, I do remember a lot of it being about, like to your point, character And, how do you find fulfillment? And if I'm remembering correctly, it's like, how are you, like, I guess, how are you like delivering value is something that I took away from that, right? Like how are you living, like, to your point, a virtuous life? And it's interesting because there's always, and it's just like an urban legend of the kid who walks out of that midterm with the chair question and writes down what chair, and he passes the class.
Yeah.
Like I love those tall tales, but I love to hear your take on it. So how then do you tie that to fitness in your own life?
Fitness is very goal oriented. I mean, it is for all of us. For me, of course, I want to set records and I want to win competitions. For everybody, I think, who's involved in fitness, you want to do well, whether it's a personal best, whether it's just shedding a little bit of weight, putting on some muscle. It's a very goal oriented activity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's easy to get wrapped up in your goals in a way that's self-defeating, where you start defining the worth of the activity and your self-worth in terms of whether you accomplish those goals. How close am I getting? Oh, it's so distant. I suck at this. Where I think philosophy comes in is that it helps give us perspective. Okay. It teaches us to embrace the journey of life, the process, that it isn't just about the end result. Sure, we set goals for ourselves. We want to set lofty goals, but what philosophy teaches is that there's a kind of intrinsic virtue and intrinsic joy in being in the middle of an activity, engaging in it, and seeing it as a journey, a story of personal development and empowerment. And that's the perspective you get, from a guy like Socrates, who probably never lifted a weight in his life. So,
he may have. We can't confirm nor deny.
We can't confirm nor deny, but he lived his life this way. Whether he lifted weights or worked out in the gymnasia, which were sort of popular in ancient Athens, that he had this joy for what he did, which was philosophy. He loved to talk to people, hear what they were about, have conversations about justice and the good life. And he would he would just take joy in the activity. And he never wrote books. That's why we need to read Plato to learn about Socrates. And he never had a job. He was just this kind of oddball guy who took such joy in talking to people. Yeah. And I think it's a powerful lesson. We can translate it to working out in the sense of like, embrace the process, embrace the path. And then, eventually, hopefully you meet your goals. But what matters most is to keep that journey in view.
So that resonates so much with me. And because in so many ways, I fall short in that regard, right? It's very easy for me, whether it be in fitness or it be some sort of goal that I have in some other aspect of my life, to get frustrated at the time it's taking for me to get to my goal. And something that I am consciously actually trying to get better at. And I think there's a lot of people in a lot of different areas of society trying to talk about this, like enjoy the process, right? Everything from like Eastern philosophy to, a philosophy professors, right? But this idea of like enjoying the process is something that I think is so easy to miss out on, right? Like I'll give you an example. So in addition to this, I also have a pull-up goal. We can talk about that a little bit. But one of the goals that I had that I set within like the last 6 months was I wanted to bench press 400 pounds.
Damn.
And I got to a place where like I was there, like, if not to get too into the workout, but like all my rep percentages, everything was like indicating that I was there. I did a final workout before I took a little break off where I basically got it, and I should have just gone for it that day, and I didn't. And then when I tested it recently, like I missed it, and I felt like I was way off, and I just was so defeated, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I just wanted to check this box off. Like, been working for this thing for so long. And I just like, I could feel how tied up I had gotten in the result of the attainment of that goal. and it's like, really, it needs to be about like enjoying that process of working towards it. And so it's easier said than done, I think, probably for a lot of people. And a lot of people listening are like, yeah, trust the process. That's great.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of just want to get there now.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that I do. And of course, I struggle with this as well. I think it's universal.
Yeah.
But I tell myself a couple of things. A lot of people, when they're thinking about a goal, they'll think to themselves, what if I fail? What if I lose?
Yeah.
And I flip it and I ask myself, what if I win?
Mm-hmm.
Because what's so interesting is that we set a goal and we work so hard to attain it. And then finally we do. And we're happy for a little while, right? We're maybe super pumped up and give it a shout of victory and, like a Conan the Barbarian, roar or something.
The big celebration.
Big celebration at the end of the workout, whatever it might be, workout or anything else in life, you pop some champagne and celebrate with your friends and have a good evening. But then you wake up sooner or later, maybe even the next morning, asking, well, what now? Mm-hmm. It's like we invest so much in the goal, and then we realize at the end of it all that actually meeting the goal was great, but now we're looking for a new challenge. It's never ending. And that's a good thing. It's never ending in a good way, because I think what that teaches us is that any achievement is fleeting. We set it, but then we want something more. And what is that something more? I think it takes us back to this idea of a journey or the adventure. Yeah. Years from now, let's say you hit that 400 bench, because I know you're going to hit it eventually, but 400 bench. What's the story that you're going to tell to your friends and to your kids, 20, 30 years from now? It's not just, I bench 400 pounds. Right. It's a number. People will say, oh, that's cool. If they work out, they'll know it's strong. Yeah. But what was the path? Who were the people you met? How did it structure your day? How did those training sessions carry over to your professional life? What lessons of character did you learn? And I think that's what will continue to live and inspire and intrigue people much more so than the number itself. So I
think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, but I try to tell myself that. What if I win?
Mm-hmm. And so when thinking, what if I win? Because like where I thought you were maybe going to go with that is sometimes when setting a goal that might seem, like big or perhaps daunting or, really difficult to achieve, a lot of people let negative self-talk kind of distract them from that. Right. So for me, maybe with this podcast, it's like, well, what if I launch this podcast and I just completely fall on my face? What if no one likes it? What if no one listens? What if no one wants to be a guest? Like those sorts of like negative thoughts. And oftentimes it's like, well, what if it works out? Like, what if I meet really incredible people? What if I have great conversations and people listening get a ton of value out of it? But for you, when you think about it in terms of like, and I think the phrasing you said was what if I win or what if I achieve it? Right. Yeah. Like how are you positioning that in your mind? Like what is the way that you're like structuring that outcome that kind of like still gets you excited about it and kind of refocuses you on enjoying the process?
Yeah. Well, I'm always excited about the goal, especially if it's something I'm passionate about, like pull-ups, Guinness World Record. Yeah. But when I say, what if I win, it's more like I'm already envisioning myself having done it. And I'm trying to fast forward to the situation that next morning where I'm asking, what now? Where I want more. And it's not just more wins or more reps. It's like something more in terms of personal narrative, if that makes sense. And that kind of takes the pressure off of the goal, off of what I'm so intently focused on.
See, and that's, I'm so glad you clarified, because it's kind of like an understanding that, hey, if and when I do achieve this goal, like it's an understanding like it's going to be enjoyable and I'll be really proud to have accomplished it. But like, I'm not going to be completely fulfilled. Like there's going to be that next yearning to accomplish something else. And it's like, just kind of, is it keeping yourself aware that that's going to exist to help keep you motivated to enjoy the moment now, that the process is like, what is like kind of the important aspect of working towards that goal?
Exactly.
Yeah.
New horizons always opening up. And when we attain our goals, the best stories are always the ones that involve failure, setback.
Oh yeah.
Falling flat on our face. And then the win has meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's one of those, the old, saying, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Right. Like all the great stories, there has to be an aspect of adversity, right? Some sort of like overcoming of an obstacle.
Absolutely.
So how did you, okay. So you went to Harvard for undergrad, played baseball. At what point in your life did you start to get interested in pull-ups and like decide to like focus your physical energy on pull-ups? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so I always loved pull-ups. They were always actually my favorite exercise.
Okay.
From the moment I did a pull-up at age 17, my dad actually just challenged me to a pull-ups competition, and this was at a time when I was just beginning to pick up weights and try to get a little stronger for baseball. Yeah. And he said, "How many pull-ups you got?" And I remember he got on the bar and he did like 10 pull-ups or something, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he beat me. I think maybe I got like 6 or 7, probably kind of messy pull-ups. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first exposure to pull-ups. But then when I started training initially to get stronger for baseball, I started learning about all the exercises one does in the gym, pull-ups, squats, power cleans, bench press, the typical big lift athletic moves. And I did notice that pull-ups were a relative strength. I could rep out decently, even though I could only bench press with like 10 pounds on each side of the bar, which, it's like you're 17, 18 years old and you're trying to get the balance right. But I remember in those days, I could still do pull-ups at I wouldn't say at a high level, but at a level that was pretty good for a beginner. But I had no idea that, one day I would be setting world records in pull-ups. But basically it moved from working out for baseball to then my buddy Will and I in college just hitting the gym just for the sake of lifting, get big and get strong.
Right. Aesthetics and
Exactly. We were opening up Arnold Schwarzenegger's Guide to Bodybuilding and like ripping workouts out of that were meant for like, guys on, a massive amount of steroids. And
exactly.
It was not efficient training, but at the time we were getting better just because at that age you can get away with a lot. And if you're lifting, having not really lifted before, you're going to get stronger. So we did that. Sure. And then after college, I got into powerlifting in graduate school. So I competed actually in England for 4 years in powerlifting and kind of.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I did know, or I was aware from your site that you dabbled in powerlifting, but so you actually did that in England. And where'd you go to grad school? It was at Oxford?
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. So not a bad resume for Guinness World Record pull-up.
I always think it's kind of an oxymoron. Oxford University powerlifting team.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. I would pay good money to get my hands on one of those t-shirts.
Yeah. But they were strong guys, and that was my first exposure to competitive weightlifting. And in retrospect, I guess that kind of prepared me in terms of the mindset to be geared up to try to set records in something else like pull-ups. But basically, to make a long story short, I did powerlifting for 4 years. I liked it, but I felt like I kind of got the most out of the sport that I was going to get.
Okay.
I could have pushed harder, but my body started feeling kind of beat up. I had hip injuries, back, pec.
Powerlifting's brutal.
It's brutal.
I mean, like the demands that you put on your body, and I don't know to like what extent you guys were working out volume wise and, just over the course of like how you were loading it. But man, like what these guys put themselves through is incredible.
Oh yeah. It is brutal. You got to be smart about it. And even if you are smart about it, it beats on your body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and partly it's nature. It's like I realized that I was getting up to some heavy lifts. Like I weighed probably 155, 160 at the time I was competing, maybe more like 160. And I got up to a 385 squat, pretty good, deep powerlifting squat, 465 deadlift. But it was at a level where I was competitive, in my weight class at a local level, but there were guys who just blow me out of the water. In my weight class still, if we're talking, like worldwide.
Right. So when you're assessing kind of like the landscape and your potential trajectory within it, you were like, this is going to be a long road that I don't know if I want to travel down.
And that's what it was. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to travel that road, was the honest truth. Like, I could have gotten better, but to what end? And I just decided I wanted to return to, first of all, being outside, because powerlifting was all indoors. So kind of get outside, which led me into running, which is still a crucial part of my workout. So I would do a lot of track stuff in addition to lifting weights. Yeah. So I set myself goals of reps. Instead of powerlifting type reps, I would be doing like 15, 20 reps and then running. So it was kind of like an NFL combine type thing where I wanted to be able to rep out at bench at first.
Yeah.
Like I want to get 20 reps at 225 and be able to run a 5-minute mile in the same week.
Oh, geez.
So I was like, that was my mindset.
You lost me at 5-minute mile. That's where you had me up until that point. That just sounds so terrible to me.
So I replaced the 40-yard dash of the NFL Combine with 5-minute mile. I don't know why I did that.
It's incredible. Well, and what's incredible, and now I think people are probably becoming more aware to that, like the human body is capable of really excelling at like multiple. I don't know what the right word is, but just watching these CrossFit guys, like they're able to have such incredible endurance and still be like so explosive and powerful. Whereas like there used to be a school of thought that like you can't do both well. And then you have a guy like Matt Frazier, who's just an absolute animal.
He's an animal. And he shattered that myth that you can't do both.
It's insane. Yeah. I don't do CrossFit, but I love watching that guy. Like I'll watch that guy do anything. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you start setting goals for yourself that include 5-minute mile. You're setting rep goals for yourself. So is this kind of like the transitional point where you're moving out of powerlifting and towards kind of closer to what you're doing today?
Exactly. So this was a transitional point, and I kind of eased off the bench press and veered into pull-ups. So I got the 5-minute mile several times. Finally, it was like I was banging my head against the wall, but I got the 5-minute mile. Ran a 456 in a race, ran a 458 in a race. This was back in like 2013.
Okay. Awesome.
And at that point I was able to get like, what was it? I think I got up to 12 reps at 225 on bench.
Oh, no, that's actually solid. And how much did you weigh? 155, 160 pounds?
By then I was probably down to 150, 155. Oh,
that's actually incredible.
Yeah. Well, thanks. It was not the 20 reps that I had set as probably an unrealistic goal, but, but I was happy with it. So I was running, I was doing those reps. And then I was getting into some local competitions at the Boston Sports Club in my town. One of the trainers had started this thing called the Gym Games.
Okay.
Which was basically like a format where it was 3 minutes, as many reps as you can get, or some events was 1 minute. So it was strength plus endurance. And it was in that context that I discovered that pull-ups was kind of my thing, because I always loved to do pull-ups, but it was at that point when the competition was kind of ramping up a little bit, and I could see where I stacked up against other guys who were stronger than me in other events, but I'd always still beat them in pull-ups, that I began to think like, wow, I'm pretty good at this.
Okay. Interesting. So it's kind of, I mean, not later in life, but I almost would have expected that you're like, no, I knew from the moment I was a teenager, I was awesome at this. Like it just, you know what I mean? I was great at it. And then I just kind of like developed it over time. But it sounds like you went through this whole other trajectory of like baseball, powerlifting, running. and then kind of found this a little bit later.
That's exactly how it happened. So
yeah, too funny.
Yeah.
So like at this point in time, like how many pull-ups, if you even remember, like were you able to do like unbroken?
So when I started competing in these gym games, I started winning the pull-ups. I was winning them at, like 30 reps, 32 reps, 36 reps. And then I kind of became known just, around the gym as like, oh yeah, pull-ups is Adam's event. He's going to win that. But how many is he going to get? So I started then focusing in on pull-ups just on the theory that this is my event. I want to defend it. Plus I liked it. It just felt good. I never felt like I was risking injury on that event.
Yeah.
Just felt built for it. So I started focusing in on the pull-up and then structuring the rest of my workout kind of cross-training for what would make me best at pull-ups. And this was now in like 2014, 2015.
Okay.
And the turning point was I was reading the Boston Globe in July 2015. And I see a front page article just below the fold on this guy up in Marblehead named Ron Cooper, who had just set the Guinness World Record for most pull-ups in a minute with a 40-pound backpack.
Oh, yeah.
And I was struck that it was a local guy, first of all.
Yeah.
And I thought the record was impressive. But then I also thought to myself, hey, I can do that. I think I can do that. Maybe not today, but give me 8-12 weeks of training. I think I can get close.
Yeah.
So I just kind of went out on a limb and reached out to him. And I sent him a video of me doing pull-ups to show him that I was legit.
Right. Yeah. Not some random straggler who's like, oh, I'm going to try and break your record. Can do 15 pull-ups. Yeah.
And to this day, he's one of my closest training partners. He's a good friend.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. He's kind of showed me the ropes. So he generously said, yeah, come up to my gym, train with me. Let's see what you've got, and I'll show you what I do. And from there, we just started meeting up more frequently. And, he was generous with sharing his workout with me. And he saw that I did some things a little different from him. Like I would do heavier weighted pull-ups and he would do more reps in a shorter period of time. And we kind of converged gradually toward the middle and continued just to improvise because we were breaking new ground in many ways.
Yeah, it really is kind of uncharted water because, people have been doing pull-ups for a very long time, but like that is a very specific goal, right? Most pull-ups within a minute, weighted, right? Like you really kind of are on the forefront of trying to figure out like what is the best way to game this and like how do I get, the best results. That's so interesting that he was willing to like have you come out and work out with him and you guys kind of worked on it together. Was he still trying to break this record at that point, or had he was content to have done it?
Well, he had broken so many records, and I think to this day he holds a crazy number of pull-ups and push-ups records.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, he's got like, maybe 15 records current or something.
Oh, really?
I'm going to get that wrong,
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's impressive nonetheless to have one.
But he's got a lot of them. And what was interesting is we became kind of friendly competitors. So we were both going for the same record. And what happened actually is, so I started going for the Guinness World Record with 40 pounds added.
Yeah.
And my friend Will from college also was training with me for that. So Will and I were both partnered up, training for it. I was also training with Ron, who held the record. So it was this like trio of guys going for it. Plus,
so awesome.
Yeah, other people out there, of course, in the world, going for it. And then the way it worked out actually is so Will and I attempted to break the record in November 2015, and we met up, and again, this was my training partner from college, so it was like a reunion, and we had a number of these throughout throughout the years after college, where we would just level up in each other's company. And it would just be like, all out pull-ups, dips, bench press, squats, see who can be the overall winner. So we had this history together of competing. So we reunite for the 40-pound pull-ups record. We both get 27 reps. The record was 25. We both get 27.
No way. Okay.
So we're thrilled.
Yeah, this is the first record you've ever attempted.
First record I've ever attempted. We're thrilled.
And just so people know too, and not to interrupt you, but to paint a picture, this is, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but this is with the weight in a backpack on your back, right?
That's right, which actually makes it a little bit tougher than a weight belt.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
We could talk about that mistake I made later, but it's hard, and it throws off like your center of balance. You kind of really have to like get comfortable doing it with the weight in that position.
Exactly. So it's kind of a different beast. It's a different groove of pulling. So we're sky high after the 27.
Right. You both just broke the world record.
We broke the world record, or we think we did. And then we get the bad news from Guinness World Records that they had deducted a number of reps because of too much break at the waist.
So what does that even mean? Break at the waist?
So Guinness World Records has what I would call a relatively strict pull-up standard. Now, there's some venues that have an even stricter standard, but what Guinness World Records says is chin over the bar on each rep, full hang at the bottom, which means that the elbows straighten. Mm-hmm. And the last part, which is kind of the trickiest part, is that the body has to maintain straightness throughout the pull. So you can't lift your legs and kick your knees up to generate upward momentum. Mm-hmm. Now, was I doing that on the 40-pound backpack? I've gone back and watched the video, and I'm honestly not sure, but I see what they're saying. Like I definitely lifted my knees a little bit toward the end.
Okay.
And they dinged me for it. So they deducted those reps, and they dinged me. They dinged my buddy. And so we were kind of just back to the drawing board. I mean, it was a great attempt. It was still a very strong attempt.
Yeah.
It was a failure in the sense of Guinness didn't approve it.
So how long did it take for Guinness to get back to you with that ruling? Because their process, as someone who's looked into it, it's like it can take a little while, right?
Yeah, it took a little while. It was a little bit shorter than I've had to wait before. Okay. And it's always kind of a crapshoot with exactly how long it takes them to get back. But it can be anywhere from a matter of, a week or a couple of weeks to months.
Yeah.
Depending on the circumstance. But
I was going to say, could you imagine thinking you broke the world record and then finding out months later? But I mean, this literally just happened to you. So how did you handle that news?
Well, of course I was disappointed at first, but I think just because I loved to train and I was hungry anyway, whether I had gotten this record or hadn't gotten it, I was going to train for more.
Okay. And so were you already on to the next thing?
I was, yeah.
Or the next goal, I suppose.
Yeah, just in the sense of upping the record at the 40-pound backpack, because that was where I thought my sweet spot was before I realized actually it was body weight.
Yeah.
Just regular pull-ups, no weight added. But I was already thinking ahead, so I was disappointed for sure for a few days, but it didn't really affect my tenacity in training just because I love to train and I would do it regardless. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't mind going into it a little bit, how do you approach the training for the pull-up? And we could certainly, if you wanted to, we can talk reps and sets and all those sorts of things. But, one of the things we kind of talked about pre-show was talking about, your view of like proper technique. Like to what extent, over the course of your record-breaking career, like have you really kind of diagnosed the technique of the pull-up and begun to like use that as a way to like inch yourself further and further ahead of everyone else?
That's a good question. And I like to think of myself as a student of the pull-up.
Yeah.
Like I break it down. I watch other people.
Okay.
I observe other competitors. So fast forwarding to my current event and current record, which is most pull-ups in a minute regular, I noticed that the top
which is 68.
68.
And just, I'll say it again, 68 for people listening. That is not an error. That is actually how many pull-ups he did in 1 minute unbroken. So sorry, just people might not necessarily, they might have to rewind and be like, no, that can't be right. It's correct.
Yeah, actually you can break them up if you want. So it's just, the clock keeps ticking.
Oh wait, did you break them up?
Yeah, I think I did 64 and then 4 singles.
Oh, okay. All right.
Remembering it correctly, something like that.
Okay. So only 64 straight, folks, and then 4 singles. I retract my previous statement. No, that's so incredible.
Fine points. Yeah, but
yeah, that's awesome.
But pull-up form, pull-up technique. Yes. So one thing I learned after watching the competitors was to take a wider grip and to put my thumbs over the bar rather than under. Now, there are a couple of reasons for this. One is that the wider grip simply allows you to shorten the range of motion. Yeah. And shorter range of motion theoretically means you can get more reps in the same amount of time, especially in a 1 minute format. The shorter the distance you have to travel, the more reps. I say theoretical because what a lot of people don't realize or appreciate when they see somebody take a wide grip is that it's very hard to maintain that grip. It's not a very strong grip.
And you mean like physically from the hands grip? That's what you mean? Like it's like tiring?
It's tiring on the shoulders, on the back, on the wrists, everything. So to learn to do a wide grip is a skill in itself. And as proof of that, consider the very first pull-up that you ever did, or if you're teaching someone how to do a pull-up, you say, all right, show me what you've got. They take a very narrow grip, which is because it gives you more leverage if the grip is about shoulder width apart. And when I train today, the more weight I add to the reps, the more I have to bring the grip in, because if I tried to do like plus 90 pounds with a wide grip, it would just be impossible.
You know, and this is actually one of the, we didn't talk about this, but this is actually how I first found out about the records that you've set. Is I was training, and I'm going to do it again. I mean, the world's a little crazy right now, so it's being postponed, but I do a decathlon. It takes place in multiple cities around the country, but in New York, it's a big one. And one of the events is pull-ups, and it's just as many pull-ups as you can get unbroken. And so I was like, all right, I'm always been pretty good at pull-ups, but like, I want to win this event. Let me go out and just see, you know, like who does it really well and what can I learn from them? And your name kept popping up. And when I realized how many pull-ups you were able to do, I was like, all right, I need to check out this guy's YouTube videos and see what on earth he's doing. And, but so that's one thing that I hope you'll take it as flattery I've stolen, is the wider grip. Because I was like, oh, he's got probably doing that because it's a shorter distance to travel, and in the interest of time, like, you know, that's a huge benefit.
Absolutely. No, I think that's you know, you got it from me. I got it from the competitors who came before. So there's a history to this. And that's it. It's a shorter distance. In many ways, it's a challenging grip. The thumbs over is kind of...
And you put thumbs over. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a fine point. I find it takes pressure off the wrist and the forearm muscles.
Interesting.
But that's a very fine point, and different athletes are going to have different opinions, because I see some very elite calisthenics athletes who go thumb under. So obviously they think that that's better. But me personally, I go thumbs under if the weight gets much over 45 pounds added. Otherwise, I'll go thumbs over for like a 1 minute challenge.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so you start working back. I mean, what else for people listening? Because you'd be surprised how many people talk to me about pull-ups, and that's talking to me having no idea that I have any interest in pull-ups at all. They're just like, they broadly want to talk about working out. They're like, hey, you know, I've set a pull-up goal for myself Like, do you have any recommendations as to like how I can do more or do it with more weight? Like the pull-up is something that it sneakily has a lot of interest among a lot of people, I find. So, knowing that, like, just do you have any advice for just the average person out there who wants to be able to do more pull-ups? We've already talked about taking a wider grip, right? There's the finer point of thumb over. Like, what else should people be paying attention to try and get the most out of the exercise?
I would say two things. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is a little bit controversial because...
Okay, here we go.
I mean, controversial in the sense of just hotly contested among athletes. I'm a big believer in giving your body days to rest.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are surprised when I say I only train pull-ups twice a week.
And I think that probably runs counter to a lot. Like if you search like do more pull-ups, you're going to get like inundated with programs that are like, do a pyramid, start with one and work your way up and work your way down every day, So I imagine people are probably going to be very surprised to hear that.
Yeah. So I go Monday, Friday, and that's what I did leading up to breaking the world record. But on those days I go super hard. And I would say that the number one exercise that I think has paid off for me to strengthen my pull-ups, to take them to the next level, is practicing explosive high pull-ups.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So instead of pulling just to get your chin over, pull to your collarbone or even lower. So actually recently I've been getting into muscle ups, which is another exercise, another thing we can talk about, but basically trying to pull so high that you can get the bar to your belly button, to your belt buckle even, which is like next level. But
with a muscle up or with a pull up?
Even just with a pull up. So you don't turn your arms over to do the press up on top of the bar.
Propel yourself up so fast and high that you actually can get, that's awesome. Right,
exactly. So that's kind of the that's the idea.
Okay.
That you're just pulling so explosively and so high and touching very low on your torso.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of reps that really pay off for like a max set of regular pull-ups or a max 1 minute regular pull-ups, because they just suddenly feel so much easier. I would say that a good chest to bar pull-up is worth 2 regular pull-ups.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess it's that idea of like just training beyond what you're going to be asked to do in the competition itself.
Exactly.
It's and this is a big stretch, and people listening are like going to say, I don't know about that one, Ken, but it's kind of like this idea. I remember when Pete Carroll was at USC, one thing that program was famed for was their practices were more competitive than the game. Like they competed so hard on, I think it was on like Wednesdays for basically who was going to start that week, that like when the game came around on Saturday, it felt like a practice in a lot of respects. Like I said, a big reach, but for whatever reason, that's what immediately came to mind.
No, I totally agree with it. Like Ron and I often talk about the workout being tougher, way tougher than the event itself. The only difference is, so the event, you're giving 100% effort.
Yeah.
In the workout, you're giving 100% in a different sense. It's not like you're testing your max every time, and you may hold back just a little bit on the very last rep, so you're not straining for reps, especially early on in a training phase. But the workout, because you're doing more reps, because you're doing weighted reps, because the volume is so much higher, it's tougher than the event, which is just 1 minute and you do 60 pull-ups or 60 plus. And then it's over in a flash. But the workout, I'm doing 150, 180 reps total. Many of those reps, usually over half of them weighted.
Oh, wow.
And many of those reps being chest to bar pull-ups, not just chin over. So it's tough.
People are probably doing some quick math and they're like, I don't think I could do 180 push-ups over the course of 24 hours, let alone 180 chest to bar pull-ups in a single session.
Yeah, it's like
that had to be something that you worked into. I mean, like, well, and actually that's a question that I have for you too, is at what point did you make the transition from doing weighted pull-ups for the records to realizing you might actually be better suited for just body weight pull-ups?
It's interesting. It was just messing around in training. You know, some of the sets that we would do to burn out at the end of the workout, kind of experimenting with the grip, going a little bit wider, watching some videos. And I said to myself, wait a minute, I think I'm better at these body weight pull-ups that I'm doing at the end of the workout.
Yeah.
And because I always go heavy to light. So start off the workout heavy, gradually get lighter, low reps to high reps. And we had both also thought that there's something very pure about just most pull-ups straight up.
It's pretty cool.
Like, how many pull-ups can you do?
Right.
And to the connoisseurs, so to speak, of the sport, we all know that the weighted pull-ups are just as hard, but just to the average Joe, it's hard to wrap your mind around what most pull-ups in a minute with a 40-pound backpack would even look like.
That's a great point. It's very niche too.
It's niche, but people kind of have a sense of the regular pull-up because they've done it in PE class. And at some point in their lives, people have a sense of what a pull-up feels like. And we just felt there was something pure about it. And I said to myself, you know what, if I'm kind of good at these and there's something basic about that exercise, let me just go for it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's one of those records that you're right. The average person can relate to how difficult it is. And they probably have a sense of what they think they can do, which would make what you're pulling off just all the more impressive, for sure. Something that I wanted to ask you about, which I find so interesting, is you've actually had to reclaim this record a couple times.
Yes. So what a lot of folks might not realize is that it's a process, that getting the Guinness World Record and maintaining the record is a process. Because there's so many competitors out there, so many people going for the record, that it's shifting back and forth. So rewind to 2016. That's actually when I set the 1 minute pull-ups record, just regular pull-ups for the first time.
Okay. And what was that record?
That was 51 reps.
51. Okay. And what, just out of curiosity, what was the record prior to you breaking that?
It was 50.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you got it by one rep.
So I got it by a rep. 51. Only months after that, an Italian guy reached 53 and a Bulgarian guy reached 54. So
the Eastern Europeans got involved and it got real difficult. Okay.
So yeah, this was 2016 and I set it in the winter. By the summertime, it had been broken twice already.
Wow.
And so I said, I got to get it back. And I trained and redoubled my efforts and got up to 55 in September. I think it's September 2017 is when I got it up to 55. And then I stepped back and I said, you know what? The competition's heating up. Somebody's going to beat 55. And I'd seen the YouTube videos and the attempts. So I knew that 55 wasn't secure, even though it was currently the record. And so the number 60 just popped into my mind. And I said, I think if I put it at 60, it'll be tough to beat. And independent of that, it's just a cool number, 60 pull-ups in 60 seconds. Yeah.
Well, what's fascinating to me about that too is, one, that's incredibly difficult, but like, so, and again, it is, it does relate kind of like when I did this first pull-up test for this decathlon that I did, I had a number in my head that I could hit. And I was like, oh, I'm going to blow this out of the water. But what I found was, like, when you actually get into a competition type setting, like, it's very easy for things like form to go out the window, or you get in a rush and all of a sudden, like, you do things to where like you're going to get pull-ups negated from you. Like the fact that you can have the discipline to kind of like keep your form and maintain valid reps throughout the entirety of that 60 seconds is one of the more impressive things about that feat.
Yeah, it's tough, and it just takes a lot of training to keep the legs straight, to keep the reps clean as you get tired, and to not let the form slide.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, so it's been this long process. So I went from 55 to finally my goal of 60 in 60 seconds. I got 61. Now we're talking 2018, September 2018, a year after the 55. And this is where it kind of got dramatic. And for me,
more than one a second. Okay. All right. I'm listening. I'm strapped in. Here we go.
So I'm just, I'm sky high after getting 61 pull-ups, and I'm tapering down my training phase because, you go in phases, and you ramp up and you taper down, and this is how you keep your body healthy and strong, and also just keep yourself mentally sharp, just make sure you don't burn out. So I'm tapering down and kind of enjoying life. And I get a call only a couple weeks later from a strange number, and it's a reporter from the Wall Street Journal. And he said,
finally, the attention I deserve.
Yeah. But he calls me up. He says, "You've got a challenger." He said there's this athlete, Anthony Robles, who impressed the nation when he won the NCAA wrestling championships with only one leg. And these are the regular wrestling championships, like national
division one, right?
I think Division One. Like, we're talking a phenomenal athlete, and just like an amazing story, a truly gifted athlete. And he said, this guy's going to attempt your pull-ups record, and he's going to do it at halftime at the Jets game.
Yep, I remember this.
And so it was just this moment where I was like, wow, I wish him the best. I didn't think he would be able to get 61, not because I doubted him, he's a great athlete, but I just knew how hard the record was.
Right. You knew what it took to do that. Yeah.
And I knew what it took to do that. But, I said, I'll be rooting for him, which was true, because I like the motivation. I like when it kind of gets ramped up and there's a story to it. So
yeah, he
gets up on the bar in front of these cheering fans, and the pressure's got to be immense on that guy.
There's like 70,000 people in the stands. It's a Jets game.
70,000.
Maybe there was less, actually. It was a Jets game. sorry, Jets fans.
But he's got this competitive background, and he's not phased, and he gets 62.
Yeah. So I mean, where did your mind go? So I thought I just put this out of reach.
Exactly.
For everyone, at least for a while.
Exactly. So I thought I had put it out of reach. I was actually going down to Florida that December to Orlando for a worldwide fitness expo that had gotten a hold of me after I broke the record at 60.
Oh, cool.
And so it was like the first time I was actually going to kind of get some sort of sponsorship, not make money off of it, but get flown down and put up. And, I would be able to do an exhibition of pull-ups to kind of gin up the environment down at the expo.
Yeah.
I just thought, I'd go down there, I'd do 50, 55 or something, whatever I had left in the tank, having tapered down a bit. All of a sudden my plans changed. I was like, oh my God, I don't even have the record anymore. And I'm going to be going down there. I've got to go reclaim it. So
yeah,
I shifted gears very fast, probably, faster than is ideal. But I had quite a base still for my training, and I was able to really lock in for a good few weeks. Went down there and got 68.
So you got the 68 that soon after?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not realize that. So he broke it, because I remember there was like a lot of national exposure around him breaking it because he did it in the Jets game and his background. So you broke it. I mean, we're talking weeks after?
Yeah, it was probably, I think it was 6, 7 weeks after.
And you decimated it, 68. So why do you think such a drastic jump from your own previous performance of 61?
It's tough to say. I think in part I was lucky in the sense that I experienced a really good stretch of injury-free training. Now, part of it's being smart, and part of it honestly is luck. That's why I say lucky. That when you're training, there are times when you're kind of dealing with niggling injuries. It's often nothing serious, but stuff that sets you back a little bit. Especially when you're training at that kind of red line level of your capacity of exertion.
Yeah.
And, I was taking care of myself, but I had a fortunate stretch where I was injury free. I also think that I was just very focused. And seeing is believing. I saw him break my record, so it gave me the confidence that I could take it to the next level.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe. It's like, you see it all the time in sports, though, when someone hits a benchmark and everyone thinks like, oh, wow, that's so hard to attain. And you think that's so hard to attain. And then someone else does it, does more, or takes it even further. And then you just say to yourself, okay, it's possible. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Let's keep this going and see how far it'll go.
Yeah. It's kind of like when Bannister broke the, was it the 4-minute mile?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, it was this impossible feat. And once it was done, all of a sudden it was like, once people realized mentally it was possible, there was like a huge influx of athletes who also shattered that barrier. So what do your students think of this? Are they all aware of this?
I think most of them are aware at this point. Yeah. As I've kind of because my colleagues in the department are very encouraging of me, and they post videos and stuff, and because everything's on social media these days, YouTube.
Oh, for sure.
The students find out about it. I think they think it's cool. It's like, Professor Pull-Ups is my teacher. But
yeah, that's awesome. So, so 68, and I think, I'm sorry. What is his name? The guy who got 62, he just broke another record.
Yeah. He broke, I think,
80-pound record.
80. And it was a ridiculous number too. I think he got like 23 reps, maybe 24 reps.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's incredible. He does only have one leg. I'm not going to, you don't have to comment on that if you don't want to, but that does change the game a little bit for him. But yeah, my mom was watching NASCAR. Hey mom, how you doing? She listens to the show. And she was like, someone just broke the pull-up world record that I think you're shooting for. And I was like, no, it's already hard enough for the one I'm going for. But yeah, he did the 80-pound record, and you're right. I think he destroyed it. So
yeah, I have to double check that number, but yeah, he destroyed it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: what are you focused on now? Are you still trying to put your own record further and further out there? I know you mentioned you've gotten into muscle ups as well.
So I want the muscle ups record, which is at 26.
Okay. So 26 and 26 in a minute.
It's consecutive. So okay. I think you can pause up to 3 seconds.
Okay.
Between reps at the top.
26. Wow.
Yeah. So
how are you getting close?
Well, I've hit 20 a number of times, but it's kind of going from 20 to mid and upper 20s that I'm realizing is really the next level.
Okay.
I'm confident, I've got work to do, but there's some technical issues that if I iron out and get the dip strength up a little bit, I think I've got a good shot.
Yeah. I mean, how many times over your attempts, because, we talked a little bit about at the beginning adversity, and surely having the reps taken from you that first attempt is certainly qualifies as adversity. But, like how often in the pursuit of these records do you hit that kind of wall that you're talking about where it's like you feel like you're not breaking through, or all of a sudden getting to that next level just almost feels daunting?
I mean, muscle ups is a great example because I was just banging my head against a wall trying to figure these things out because it's tough. It's a very technical move. It's like a reverse power clean is how I would describe it.
Yeah.
To someone who doesn't know what it is, but who does kind of know lifting in general.
Yeah, and I'll even attempt to describe it. Basically, it's like you do a pull-up, and kind of like you were saying before, you propel yourself up above the bar, and at some point in that motion, right, you kind of turn your hands over, and it almost becomes like that dip exercise, and then you finish out the dip, and you end up, I don't know, what's the bar at your thighs? Like, you're completely up above the bar. So it's a great party trick as well. If you want to learn it.
It is. People, people love muscle ups on, Instagram, YouTube. They definitely get more views. It's like I'll post one muscle up and then I'll post 50 pull-ups. Obviously, 50 pull-ups is infinitely harder, but
right.
We'll get more views. But it's it looks cool. It's elegant. And I'm just, but I've been trying to figure it out. And like you said, adversity at first, I was just stuck at like 5 reps, 6 reps. And then I kind of got to 10 reps and was stuck there and just kind of sticking with it and finding the groove took a really long time. But I think one thing that's confidence inspiring for me, and I think would be for a lot of people, is that it's hard to know when you're going to have a breakthrough moment. We kind of have this notion of progress is linear, that it's this kind of gradual upward straight line trajectory. But what actually happens is you're kind of flatlining for a while. And then suddenly, almost inexplicably, you'll have a spike and you'll kind of reach a new level and you never quite know when that's coming. So just trust yourself, keep at it, trust your training. And breakthroughs happen in the blink of an eye. It's not something you can easily foresee. So if you have a goal, just, stick with it. That's what I tell myself.
Yeah, that's good advice. And so now, I mean, how do you approach training? And what I mean more broadly is like you have a powerlifting background from your time in England. Are you still... Is all of your training focused on pull-ups, or like, do you still get to the track and run? Are you still doing power cleans? Like, you know what I mean? How do you kind of balance your approach?
Yeah, I would describe my workout as full body. So, the riff, he skips legs day.
Right.
It's not true because, what I've learned is that to be at a high level at a particular exercise like pull-ups, especially if it's full body, if it's a pull-up, or whether it's squats, or whether it's even something like bench press, maybe a little bit less so bench press, but you have to train the full body. And what I mean by that is you train pull-ups only so much. For me, it's twice a week.
Yeah.
But you're actually training pull-ups on those other days, on those cross-training days, even though you're not using your back muscles and putting your chin over a bar. I feel like I'm training pull-ups when I'm hitting the track, when I'm doing 400-meter repeats, and I've got the lactic acid just boiling in my legs.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to hit 75-second laps. So that's like 5-minute mile pace. And I'm trying to do 8 of them. And I'm resting like a strict 90 seconds in between. Oh, God. And I'm counting my breaths as if they were pull-ups. I actually think in my mind, as I'm running that lap, I'm doing pull-ups right now. This is the last 30 seconds of my 1-minute pull-up attempt. Yeah. And it's that mental toughness, but also the sheer physical burn that is unlike anything else that you get from running. where I feel I am training pull-ups, even though I'm not using my back muscles. Those muscles are resting, but I'm still engaged in a full body exercise that is directly translating to pull-ups. And it's the same with squats. Throw a 45-pound plate on each side of the bar and rep out for a minute.
Yeah.
You're training pull-ups. Don't worry. It's like your legs aren't going to grow huge if you're eating smart. And, that's kind of a lightish mid-weight, to train at. That's consistent. Not only is it consistent, that will help you, I guarantee you, with pull-ups, because it's the same body. It's the same like neuromuscular coordination, firing quickly, pushing through the pain barrier. It's all the same. So you're doing that. You're doing push-ups. You're doing dips. You're training pull-ups as you're doing those other movements.
Yeah. No, and I think that also might surprise people as well. I think people might imagine, look, like thinking about like, hey, widen your hands out because it shortens the distance. Another person would be like, well, the next logical step is like have your legs be tiny, because then that's less weight you got to carry each rep. So it is really interesting to hear that you do still focus on full body. And I love the idea that even though you're not using your back, right, you're always training pull-ups. From an endurance standpoint, because we talked a little bit, and I think it was before we started, but the lactic acid, right? Like 400s, I'm sure you're getting that in spades. 400's terrible. I ran my last 400, so I thought, as a senior in high school at the state track championships, and I was like, I will never do that again as long as I live. And now, interestingly enough, I still do them like once a year, basically, and they're just as terrible as I remember. But do you get that same sort of like lactic acid experience when you're doing the pull-ups in the minute test? Like, are you getting that same sort of like kind of unbearable burn in your arms and back once you hit that like 45-second threshold?
No, it's not that bad. It's not.
No,
it's not as painful as running a 400 meter. It's just at a certain point, you can't do any more pull-ups, but it's almost as if the failure hits you before the pain can hit you. With running, you can grind it out more. The pain hits and you can maintain the pace, and then you just feel sick to your stomach. Your lungs are burning, like everything hurts. But with pull-ups, like you just won't be able to get yourself up.
Right. Yeah.
It's different. It's different, but it does burn. There is a point at like second number 40, 40 seconds down, 45 seconds down, then you have 10 seconds left and you're burning. So, and you have to keep up the pace. So there is that toughness from running that kicks in on the pull-up bar, but it's not the same kind of pain. I don't think there's any athletic activity that's non-contact where I feel the same pain as running.
Yeah, that makes sense. How much time, how much mental space would you say you give your quest for pull-ups, right? Because clearly it's not like you just have like a day job, right? You're teaching philosophy at Harvard. So already that in itself probably demands a lot of mental energy. Like, to what amount of like thought and time do you dedicate to your attempts of these records and training for these records?
It ends up being 2 hours a day for the workout, 6 days a week.
Oh, okay.
But then everything surrounding that, and it, like being an athlete, it's kind of like everything has to click: the diet, the sleep, try not to be too stressed, especially late in the day. And it's very difficult if you're working a day job and you've got a family or whatever it is you're doing. So I would say that just the time surrounding the workout, meal prep, travel, you're tacking on minutes and maybe an hour or something. But
yeah,
I think it can be done. What a lot of people don't realize is that you can become an elite athlete without devoting your entire day to it.
Yeah.
That you can work a day job. I would almost venture to say that even a very high level athlete, like an Olympic athlete, could in theory work a day job and excel at their sport. Because if you look at the way they train,
and I think a lot of them do, right? I mean, I think that's because a lot of these guys aren't making any money.
That's a great point. So I should change that comment actually to definitely. I'm sure there are people who are really working hard at a day job. But you even look at the way somebody like Usain Bolt trains, for something like an 100-meter, 200-meter, best guy in the world in history at these sprint events. And yes, he's getting extra massage therapy, extra stretching, extra everything to help him recover. But the actual time per day that he's working out is going to be pretty confined to maybe 2-3 hours, simply because it's not efficient to train more than that. So it's a lesson, I think, to the average person who just wants to get fitter, that it's just consistency. It doesn't take much. You just have to block out a discrete amount of time per day, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. You can get to a very high level just doing that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, and I think that's true for so many things too. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. My wife is on a quest to do one pull-up. We had a experience recently where we have a little creek in our backyard, and we had a tree that had fallen, and we were trying to cut it down, and she had a life or death moment. So she thought. She fell about 2 inches, and she realized she was holding on to this tree, like dangling over a creek, and she didn't have the strength to pull herself up. And I've been telling her whole life that she needs to be able to do one pull-up if she ever finds herself in a situation where she needs to pull herself to safety. So we're going to adopt the consistency method. And I think she'll enjoy hearing that she doesn't have to do it every day of the week, which will be good.
Yeah, but just don't tell her about the 400s.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Maybe we'll withhold that part of it until later in her training.
Well, that's great. That's awesome that she's going for a pull-up. It's just a great exercise, and it's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. And they are a lot of fun. How angry do people who do kipping pull-ups make you?
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of debate about this, but they don't make me angry at all.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
No,
I thought I was going to goat you into a hot button topic.
It's a hot button topic, but the way I see it, any way you can get yourself over the bar, get your chin over the bar, is a good way. And I take it back to functionality. Like, you see, the pull-up is a very functional movement. It's something, there's a reason why it's a staple of military tests, right? Like, pull yourself up, get yourself up over a wall. You're on a mission. You've got to pull yourself up. In real life, if you're dealing with such a functional movement, who's gonna care if you kipped or if you kicked your legs? Let's say you've got to get over a barrier and you're on, a highly sensitive mission. What your buddy's gonna say, "Hey man, you kipped that. Bad job." No, you got over the barrier. And
right.
That's the way I see CrossFit. It's like training to get yourself over the bar in the most efficient way that the human body can do it, which means you kick your legs and you generate momentum, and it's a thing in and of itself. Now, if we're talking a pull-up competition, if we're talking a Guinness World Record for most pull-ups, that's a different story. So I don't train kipping pull-ups because it's not useful to me. It's not useful to achieving my goals.
Right.
But if you see some of the numbers that CrossFitters who do kipping pull-ups put up, you have to respect it. I mean, they're putting up, monstrous numbers. Now, it's different. It's using momentum from your legs. It's a different exercise, but that doesn't make it a bad exercise. There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought I'd ask. So, this has been great, and maybe we can just end on this. The idea of goal setting, right? So clearly when you have a record that you're shooting for, the goal is defined and measurable. But I feel like, you've become very proficient at achieving goals. Is there anything about your approach that you have developed over time that you found to work really well for you? Is it something that you even consciously think about? Because I could also see how you might say, like, the goal is so clearly defined, I just know what I'm working towards. I'm interested to hear kind of what your approach is to that idea.
I think goal setting is important. And I'm just looking back on my own trajectory in fitness, how I would say I'm in the best shape of my life now, having focused pull-ups. And that's full body. That's not just best at pull-ups, it's best all around. So I think goal setting is important. It gives you a reason and a purpose to go into the gym. So it's not just that you're saying, oh, I'm going to do a few exercises, but no, I'm going to shoot for as many pull-ups as I can. And then I'm going to figure out all of the other parts of my body, all of the other movements that I have to strengthen in order to reach that goal. I think it's very important to have a goal, but then I also take it back to the journey and how do you attain your goal, but also how do you transcend an obsession with your goals? How do you stay a kind of grounded and motivated and really happy person as you're striving for goals that you really want? And I would say one is surrounding yourself with great people who are going to encourage you in those moments when you're down. They're going to celebrate with you, but they're going to encourage you when you're down. So that's training partners.
Yeah.
That's like my buddy Will. That's like my buddy Ron. That's like the group Boss Life Athletics that I've linked up with recently, who I train with. They're based in New Jersey. And it's like a group of elite calisthenics athletes who enter competitions. Cool. Yeah. So they're into a competitive, mindset, but also a very supportive, team-oriented, community-oriented mindset. So surrounding myself with people like that. And then also just trying to walk away from every day, from every workout with a good story to tell. It could be a little story, but not just like, oh, I hit these numbers and came short on these numbers, but something new that I played around with, a piece of advice that I got from a training partner that I can apply not only on the bar, but in other aspects of my life. So coming away at the end of the day, I think with a story to tell yourself, but to tell your kids or your friends, husband, wife, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And that's both what makes our projects worthwhile, but it's also what keeps us grounded so that we don't get too obsessed with the goals and too dejected and down on ourselves when we don't quite hit those goals.
Yeah. I love that perspective. And that's something that I think even after leaving this conversation, I'm going to try and be more conscious of. Like I said, you talk about trust the process, you talk about enjoy the journey. But I think you're missing out because I used to be this way, especially in high school, trying to go play college football. Sometimes my training sessions, I would be so miserable to be around because I would be so worried that I wasn't going to achieve my goal. That I would just be miserable to be around. And I had a great work ethic, so it all worked out. But yeah, now at this point in my life, I would love to approach it, I think, from the same perspective that it sounds like you do. It sounds a lot more enjoyable for yourself and the people around you. So for people who want to be able to follow along with what you're doing, where's the best place to do that? And I guess, from pull-ups for sure, but, for on the philosophy side of things too, how can people find out more about you?
Yeah. So check out my website, adamsandel.com. That's where I've kind of tried to bring philosophy and fitness together and to give people a little bit of flavor of the projects I'm currently working on. So please. Yeah. I'm working on a book that's really on philosophy and happiness, but drawing on fitness and
very cool.
And the stories, the experiences from training to illuminate philosophy is something that I'm working on right now. So you get a taste for that on my website, which is adamsandel.com. You can also find a pull-ups training program that's really a full body training program that can be adjusted to multiple levels, but based on my own training plan. That's all on my website. And then for just the workout videos that I post daily, professor.pullups on Instagram.
Yeah. Perfect. So I'll link to all of this. And you wrote a book. Sorry, my notes, my iPad just went dead. But you also already have a published book, correct? From like 2014?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. So that's a philosophy book. It doesn't deal with fitness, but the themes of that book tie into fitness in the sense of understanding your life as a journey. So that's a book about what it means to have an open mind. And it's dense, you know, I'm warning readers, you got to like philosophy, but yeah, you can check that out. But the book I'm currently working on is hopefully going to be a book that's accessible to non-philosophers.
Oh, wonderful.
Anyone looking to think about happiness and the active life and sports and philosophy and how it all ties together.
Well, let us know when that's ready. We'll have you back on, and I'll definitely help make people aware, because I want to read that myself. So that sounds like a very worthwhile project, and I'm glad you're the one tackling it.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate you. And we're going to keep an eye out. I guess the next record to keep my eye on is Muscle Ups.
Yeah, look out for it.
All right. Well, awesome. Hey, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks so much, Ken. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, you got it.